Today on First Century Foundations, we explore the place where Jesus performed the most miracles. We hear a miracle story from our friend Rita, and I try to see if I can be lowered through a first century roof, and it's all coming up right now. Hey everybody, I'm Joe Amaral.
And I'm Karen Amaral.
And welcome to another edition of First Century Foundations. And this season we're focusing on the miracles of Jesus. And we started in the village of Cana, and now we're progressing and moving a little more east towards the Sea of Galilee, and we end up in Capernaum. And Capernaum is actually made up of two Hebrew words. You know, we always think of reading the Bible in English, but you have to have the Hebrew background. And Capernaum is Kafar Nahum, the village of a comforter. And it's such an appropriate name because he brought comfort to so many people.
Well, and that's where Jesus did most of his miracles.
A lot of his miracles. And we're going to go there later on in the show and learn about some of those miracles. He did so many things. But one of the ones we want to focus on is in Mark 2, where Jesus heals the man, the paralytic, the guy who's lowered in through the roof.
I have always wondered how that was accomplished.
Yeah. Well, we live here in the West and we see how roofs are today, and you think there's no way that could happen. Yeah. And I always thought, too, that the roofs were made up of like straw or something really cheesy and easy to break through. But I was fascinated, and you're going to see later, we're going to go into Nazareth, into a village there, and learn how roofs were actually made. And I think you'll be surprised how hard these guys had to work and how desperate they were for this guy to get a miracle. And so that's the physical paralysis, but we also want to focus on a different kind of paralysis that some people go through.
Yeah, well, we're going to be speaking with Rita today, who is going to introduce us to a young woman who was captured by a Bedouin camp and held there and paralyzed by fear, basically. And her testimony of what God has done in her life and looking at the present-day miracles of what's happening in Israel.
So we're going to learn about miracles then and miracles now. We have a great show coming up today. Capernaum is a very important city in the New Testament, and this is where I caught up with Ori to learn more about it. So Ori, we're here in Capernaum.
Yes.
Now that's the very English way to say it. Capernaum.
Kfar Nahum. The village of Nahum.
Like
You have to pronounce the ch. Nahum. Nahum is a name of a prophet from the Old Testament.
Right, we would say Nahum.
Nahum.
In English.
Okay.
Yeah.
The meaning of the word is the comforter.
Okay, so this is the village of a comforter. Now we were talking earlier about Capernaum, its strategic location and purpose. That it wasn't just, Jesus didn't just move here because, wow, this is so pretty and nice, but there's purpose for why he chose to come here.
Oh yeah, it was the only town in the northwest part of the Sea of Galilee. It's on the Via Maris that takes you from the coastal plains
routes, right?
toward the inland and on to Damascus.
To Damascus, okay.
Yeah. So if someone passes through here, this is a good place to place here a town. It was a farming town, it was a fishing town, and they had some hotels to support the passengers.
Okay. Now this is also a great town to be. If you're doing miracles, and people are passing through, they didn't have Facebook and Twitter back in those days.
No.
So if you wanted to get a message out, imagine people coming through here and they hear about this healer who's healing blind people and lepers, and he's raising the dead, and all these things are happening. From here, the message would spread very quickly.
Oh yeah, I think Jesus is mentioned in the Bible. I'm sorry, Capernaum is mentioned in the Bible as the site where Jesus made more miracles than in any other town around Israel, including Jerusalem.
Now this is a very famous synagogue in Capernaum for tourists to come see.
Yes, one of the most well-preserved synagogues from the old times. Yeah, but we have to mention, this is a synagogue from the Byzantine period.
Right, 4th, 5th, 6th century?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. The Byzantines were out of here in the 7th century. Okay. So this is a late synagogue, but if you understand a little bit of archaeology, you'd see right away that this synagogue is placed on an older synagogue.
Okay.
That was here at the time of Jesus at the 1st century AD.
Okay, well, why don't we go look at that and show people the ruins, or at least some of the foundations of the original synagogue.
Sure.
And a lot of groups miss it. Everybody knows about the beautiful Byzantine, the nice columns, but they seldom realize. So right here,
Oh yeah.
just below us, here, you see the basalt rock again, right? Which is very common to the area.
Exactly. The basalt is the most common stone, common rock in the area. So it's very simple to gather all that. And you can see that the building is less sophisticated than the time of the Byzantine era. You can see the difference in the rocks. This is a different kind of rock.
Yeah.
Okay. This is limestone. Everything is different. That's exactly maybe the rocks where Jairus and Jesus stepped on. Okay, and that very day when Jesus healed Jairus' daughter.
Cool. Well, let's go around back here. Let's see a little bit more. And I'd like to talk about that miracle, because this season we're focusing on what we call the miracle trail. Okay, so we're talking about the miracle trail, the place where Jesus did miracles. And you were mentioning how he did more miracles here in Capernaum than anywhere else, including Jerusalem.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the most famous miracles of Jesus happens here in Capernaum. There's quite a few, but we're going to get to them. But one of the ones is when he heals the daughter of the ruler of the synagogue, a man named Jairus.
Yes, Jairus was an important man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you heal an important man's daughter, that draws a lot of attention. That also appeals to Jairus himself, who tells himself, all right, I heard a lot about this person who's rolling around here among the villagers in the Galilee, but now I see it in my own eyes, and not only that, with my own dead daughter.
Exactly. It's nice when you hear God do stuff for other people around the world, and that's really beautiful. But when he does something for you personally, all of a sudden it takes on a whole new meaning.
And in addition to that, something else happens here. A synagogue at that time, before the destruction of the second Jewish temple, is not for praying, it's for reading Torah.
That's right.
And so people are coming here from all over. They pray in solitude in their own home, but they come over to listen. The person reads from the Jewish Torah, and this is also a place for social gatherings. So there are many people present here, and they see it in their own eyes. It's not only Jairus, but the fact that Jairus is here. This is Jairus' daughter, and in addition to that, there are like hundreds of people here. Well, this is very significant. That spreads the rumor around.
And then even more than he doesn't just heal a Jewish man's daughter, but even there's a story about a Roman centurion that happens here in Capernaum.
And this is another side in the personality of Jesus.
Yeah.
He does not make good things only for his own religion or for his own nation.
Own people,
Yeah, he helps people generally. You can be a good person whether you're a Jew or you're a Roman.
That's
right. Whether you are controlled, whether you're the controller, it doesn't matter. And we know it's not only Jesus, and we know that Peter actually is following that example and doing the same thing in Caesarea.
But what a wonderful example is that the very people who would later crucify him, that man, first of all, displays an incredible act of faith. He says, in all of Israel, I've not seen such faith.
Yes.
Because the man said, I'm a man in authority, and I know, and if I tell my servant to do something, he's going to do it. So if you say you're going to heal him, and you're a man of authority in God, I know what's going to happen.
These kind of people, in such an important, such a high rank, do believe that they saw everything, that they know a lot of things, and that not many people can fool them. Okay, that's what they believe. All of a sudden, he sees something that's completely different.
Doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor.
Yes.
Coming up, Rita shares a touching story from a woman recently rescued, and later I go to Nazareth to see what it would take to be lowered through a roof, first century style.
For 2,000 years, man has been studying the life and words of Jesus. But in our modern culture, can we truly understand what he really meant? Now we can. Joe Amaril's book, Understanding Jesus, removes the veil of history and brings us greater understanding of the time and culture that Jesus and the authors of the Bible lived in. In Understanding Jesus, we study the feasts of the Lord as Jesus celebrated them and find valuable insight into God's prophetic timetable throughout history. Knowing more about this ancient culture will give you accurate insight into the teachings of Jesus and will take your faith to a whole new level. And this life-changing book can be yours for just $20. Call today and order your copy of Understanding Jesus by Joe Amaral, 1-877-628-2800, or visit us online at www.firstcenturyfoundations.com.
Today we're going to visit with Rita in Haifa and learn about the ministry that she's doing among women there and their children, and all the experiences that they have had to go through to get to Israel and find out what she's doing there and making a difference in their lives.
I just want to share that God has done repeated miracles. And as many know, we've been able to bring in women for the last 8 years. But in the last year, we've begun, or more, to see women who've been so severely tortured and so severely wounded in the hands of the Bedouin smugglers, who actually are the ones who have extorted more than $35,000 from them. The stories are horrific. This woman is scarred here. Her mouth is scarred. She's supposed to be smiling, but her mouth is scarred. But God has given us such grace with her. She's a Muslim woman. And when she came 2 nights ago, she hurt so badly she couldn't stop crying. The other night, she was so full of pain. The first night, she couldn't even sleep. She just fell on the floor with silent tears streaming. And I cried out. I said, God, you've got to give us a way to break through to this woman. We're not going to be able to live with this kind of pain in our midst, because it takes a while. She didn't get medical help. She didn't get any of the help she needed for the last year. But by the grace of God, she found her way through an organization in Tel Aviv to our home. So yesterday, people began to pray over her and began to see the joy of the Lord just come into her life. Last night she slept, and we're beginning to see the miracle that God wants to do in her. New life spiritually, new life for her body, for all of her, for her precious daughter Rauya. This is what we do, because we're only His hands extended. And that's the beginning of a real miracle. But for me, it was a tremendous touch of the Lord's hand to say, I care. People like this don't come every day with such needs. And people who pray and believe God aren't always there to surround her. But God brought it together in His mercy. We thank you so much for making it possible for us to love women like Radia. Just when we think, Lord, who else, what else can we do? He just gives us the ability through your support, your prayers, your encouragement, even a volunteer we have who came from Canada who saw this very First Century Foundation's television broadcast. We got a call and she has been the hugest help to us. I can't tell you the blessing of this show, of friends like Joe and Karen and the others who are part of the family. And we, Clyde and Marion, we can't begin to say that we could not make lives change and be transformed by the power of God without you. Thank you.
It's so wonderful to hear how Rita is affecting these women in Haifa and how much they have come to appreciate her and to love her, and all the changes that are going on in their lives. And even right now, we've learned that children are getting to go to camp and have fun experiences after all the crises that they have been through and the many trials that they've been through. They get to go and enjoy a summer camp amongst their friends, and that's because of our viewers at First Century Foundations. And we want to thank you so much for supporting her and what she does in her ministry. We have over 70 different ministries that we support and we raise funds for, and we know that these lives are being changed, they're being affected because of viewers like you.
To make a donation or learn more about this ministry and the Israel Prayer Watch, visit us online at www.firstcenturyfoundations.com or call 1-877-628-2800.
Hey, it's good to see you again, Majd.
Good to see you too, Joe.
We had you on the show last year. Do you remember being on it?
Yeah, we talked about the tecton,
That's right.
the builder.
Yeah, last year we were focusing on the culture of Jesus and seeing what he did for a living. And most people always see Jesus as a carpenter, and you showed us it was much more than that, not just working with wood, but also with stone.
Exactly. Yeah, that was fun.
That was, and here we are again talking about building. There seems to be a theme here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, this year we're talking about the miracles of Jesus, and we're looking at the different miracles he did around the Galilee, and of course in Nazareth. This is where he was from. This is where he did miracles as well.
Yeah.
And we just came from Capernaum, and we were talking about a miracle that he did there. where he was teaching in a courtyard of a home, and like often happened, there was such a big crowd, and there was men there who were desperate to help their friend, and they couldn't get into the house. What they did, they took him up to the roof, and they lowered him down, and Jesus heals him. Now, most of us from the West, when we hear the word roof, what do we think of?
Well,
like what we see all around us today, something modern.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they didn't have, tiles and asphalt and whatever else they needed to make roofs back then.
Yeah, I know.
So if you could help us, the viewers, and me actually, to understand, first of all, what did a roof look like? But before that, what were the materials used to make something like that?
Well, it was just whatever was around, and whatever was available, and that is basically what we see over here. We have just your everyday normal dirt.
Good old Israeli dirt, okay.
Yeah, you can plant things in it, and you have that.
Okay, so just, there's no manure in here, is there?
No.
Okay, good.
At least I don't know.
You never know.
Yeah. So there's that, and there's also finely crushed limestone. One way to do it is you heat up the stones, you put them in fire for a long time, then throw them in water, and the temperature difference just cracks them up.
Cracks them?
Yeah, and that's what you get.
And then what, do you have to crush it after that, or is it just?
Yeah, you gotta make sure it's finely crushed.
Okay.
So you do that. So you mix the dirt with the finely crushed limestone.
Limestone, okay.
And hay.
And hay.
Yeah, this is the basic. These are the basic components, and this is what you usually have in a roof. You can also add ashes to it. That was also used in order. In order to have like a porous layer, and that makes the next layer stick very well.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Yeah. So these are basically the materials, and you can imagine it would not be that hard to put a hole through this.
Yeah,
it's not
it'll be a lot of
concrete.
work to put it together, though.
Yeah, definitely a lot of work.
Yeah, we read the gospel sometimes, and we forget that it's about normal people, everyday people.
Yes.
They lowered a man through the roof, and it was fine, no big deal. Hang on a second, dude, you just destroyed my house, right?
Yeah.
But when you're desperate, I mean, people will go to amazing lengths, to do what they need.
It was a last resort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. That's the first step, is kind of learning about some of the materials used. Now, what would it look like when it was completed? I don't see anything here. Is there an area here on the site that we can see that?
Yeah, we have several houses. We have the synagogue, the olive press. So you want to take a look
that would
at
be
it?
great. Let's go show everybody.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I had the chance to help destroy a roof and put it back up a few years ago.
I bet you destroying it was easier.
Oh yeah, a lot easier. In fact, it took us one day to tear the whole thing down.
Right.
But 3 months to put it back up.
Oh wow.
So when those guys destroyed the roof, it wasn't, when Jesus praised their faith, it's not about being able to put a hole through the roof. It's actually about, everything that follows. Fixing the roof, and that's just the situation. You're destroying a roof on a house full of people. Every day I went home and I would shower, change my clothes. Back then they didn't have that luxury.
Right.
So a lot of people were angry with them.
All the people in the house would have been covered as they started to dig through the layers, right?
Yeah, and not to mention also, it's really hard to breathe in that dust.
Oh, okay.
So there's just a lot that goes into it. That's why it was not the first option. It was their last resort.
Well, that's why I'm so glad we're here, Mash, because I know I myself, and probably a lot of the viewers, wouldn't think of it that way. We have electric saws and jigsaws and all kinds of stuff. We could just cut a quick hole. It's not that big a mess.
Yeah.
But it was a big deal.
It was a very big
They were
deal.
really desperate. That's what we kind of get from the text.
Exactly.
Right? Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
All right, let's go to the roof.
Okay. So how close would this be, to what they had back then?
Very, very close.
Really?
You see, the first concrete building in the whole country was built back in 1912.
Okay.
So until under 100 years ago, they were still using the same materials, the same techniques in building houses.
I didn't know that.
People who built houses like these are still alive until today.
Wow.
So that's how we were able to get even closer to the first century product.
That's incredible. So, okay, now this totally changes the story.
It does.
That we read about in the Gospels. I mean, I have to admit, when I've seen Hollywood movies, it's always a few branches and they kind of move it out of the way gloriously and he drops perfectly to the ground.
No.
Look at this. I mean, I'm not going to try to destroy it, but you can feel this is it's like concrete.
It is very strong. You can.
Yeah, you would need like a nice big rock or some kind of a something sharp chisel to break away at it.
Or even stomping on it. That's how we did it.
Really?
You just got to make sure you find your
beams.
Yeah.
Or else you go right through the roof.
Yes, yeah. That was the scary part when I helped destroy it.
Now, how easy is it to go through a roof like this?
Oh, not hard at all. It really is easy. It is.
Okay.
But putting it back up is hard.
Okay, now I don't know if it's possible. We were talking about it before we started taping, saying, wouldn't it be cool to try and be lower down through a roof? I'm not going to ask that you guys destroy a perfectly thatched roof, but is there a place that we could go where there's maybe, it's not as set up yet, we can kind of simulate a little bit?
We're actually preparing a place to be roofed, to apply the layers to it.
Okay.
So we can try and use that.
Okay, well, I'm going to get dropped through a roof and we'll see what happens. Cool.
Right. Let's do that.
All right, man. So just seeing how solid that roof was just very helpful to know how hard and how desperate they were to get their friend healed. So
exactly. Well, I'm glad that we're not going to have to do that.
Yeah, it'll be a little easier here, but
Yeah.
we want to give the viewers just kind of a little bit of perspective. So
Yeah.
this is kind of what, like the first layer that you put on? Or?
Yeah, this is, you put the reeds,
Okay.
and then you start laying down the first layer, the second and the third. And
Of the mix, of the soil,
Yeah.
the hay, the ash, the limestone.
Exactly. Mhm.
Layers. What, do you have to let it dry and then put another layer?
Well,
How
you
does
have
it
the
work?
first layer.
Right.
It's in a mud form. Then
Okay.
you let it dry, and then you put the same material but in a dry form,
Oh, okay.
and then roll it. And the third is the same as the first one. Now that dry form is in there, so if the water should seep through the first layer, it hardens up and it self-seals.
Oh,
So
brilliant.
they thought of that.
look at that. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to destroy your nice roof.
Yeah.
But this one is just in the first stage, so it's okay?
Yeah, you can go
So do
ahead.
you think, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of climb up there and we'll open the hole in the roof and then I'll come down as safe as I can, okay?
Yeah, you can jump. I'll catch you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to go up here. Okay,
Here, let's.
so let's open up the roof.
Yeah.
Okay, let me come up here. Oh, more of the same kind of roof here.
There you go.
Wow, so we're destroying the roof, kind of like what they did in the biblical story.
Kind of. Yeah.
Now, so I can hop over. It's okay if I take it right
Yeah.
off?
Go ahead.
If you're gonna destroy it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so you're gonna catch me?
Oh yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm doing this now, and I'm just trying to envision there's a whole group of people. Here's Jesus teaching. Like, he's right in the middle of a sermon. Imagine
Yes.
you're preaching in your church, and these guys open up a hole in your ceiling.
Yeah, they definitely stopped the show.
It was a showstopper for sure.
Yeah.
So you just kind of come down here
Yep.
and lower,
There you go.
like that.
Yeah, except for they had 4 people bringing.
Lowering them down,
Yeah.
down, and stuff's falling and powder's falling all over the crowd and Jesus, and everybody's
Yep.
looking, wondering what in the world is going on. Maj, awesome as always.
Awesome as always.
I appreciate the insight, brother. Well, hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be back right after this.
What Would Jesus Read? The daily devotional book by Joe Amaral. Since the destruction of the first temple nearly 3,000 years ago, the Jewish people have used a system of reading weekly portions of the Bible in an effort to preserve the scriptures. This same system was in place during the time of Jesus. And now, with this daily devotional book by Joe Amaral, you can follow and practice the very same devotional system that Jesus used. This book is designed to help you read the Bible daily with a first-century mind, bringing you greater insight into the mind of our Lord as you read what He read. Call the number on your screen now for your very own copy of What Would Jesus Read for just $25. 1-877-628-2800 or order online at www.firstcenturyfoundations.com. What Would Jesus Read by Joe Amaral. We're waiting to hear from you. Call today.
Well, I can't believe another show's come to a close. You know, it feels like we've done so much. We're all over the place. We started off in Capernaum, and I've been to Capernaum. You've been to Capernaum so many times.
Yeah.
And what do you think the draw is about Capernaum?
probably so many of Jesus' miracles were done there.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the ruins are as they stand.
So well preserved.
Yeah, very well preserved, and you get to see what life was like during that time.
Yeah, you know, people kind of have, you know, the Jesus moment there. You know, it's, wow, this is an actual place. Not maybe, almost 100% he was here, you know.
Yeah.
And you're at the ruins of the house of Simon Peter's mother-in-law. You see the synagogue where he preached and where Jairus the ruler was. And you can imagine the woman with the issue of blood and the daughter who was raised from the dead. There's so much that happens in this little village. It's one of those things, one of those places where when you go, you start to have that connection process. And we know that the man was lowered through the roof there. I mean, I was shocked when I went to Nazareth Village. When we loved working with Majd. He's a great guy. He's great English, fun guy, good attitude. And well, we wanted to be lowered through a roof, but they didn't give me permission to destroy a house. I don't know why. So we kind of faked it a little bit, but you got to see how we got to go through the different layers. And when I walked onto that top of, I don't know if it was a home or a synagogue, and we got to see how the floor, the ceilings actually, the roofs were actually made. It was almost like a concrete. I mean, it was unbelievable how solid it was. And it made me think.
They would have had to work really hard to get that man lowered through the roof.
I mean, there was purpose in it. They really needed
determined
to get to Jesus, you know, and that's a beautiful message right there. And this is one of the wonderful things we get to do on the show is we get to experience and do what the Bible records. And one of the things I love to do is I love to come into churches and to teach on the Hebraic roots, give you the background, the cultural sayings, you know, the meanings behind what Jesus said to help you better understand the gospel. And so we would love to come to your church and teach and preach there. And if you'd like to do that, visit the website. There's a form there that people can fill out. And
we also love to keep in touch with our viewers on a regular basis. So if you follow us on Facebook, if you follow us on Twitter, you can find out right up to the minute what's happening in Israel.
Yeah, I love tweeting, and if anybody follows me, you'll know I do. I love, even on Instagram, I love to post photos of some of the really cool places that we get to go. But Karen, you know, while it was wonderful talking about what Jesus did in the past and his miracles in Capernaum and in Nazareth all over the place, you got to really experience and show the viewers a wonderful miracle that God's doing today.
I mean, it's amazing to hear the testimonies that are coming out of Israel, and especially from Rita's girls, Rita's ladies. She loves on those women like I have never seen anybody.
She's a mother like I've never seen to so many people.
And it's so neat to watch them as she's interacting with them. They're coming up and giving her hugs like she's, you know, their mama bear, and she really takes care of them and shows them the love of Christ.
Yeah, and we love supporting ministries like hers. And so if you want to get more information, hop onto the website or call the office, request the Israel Prayer Watch, stay up to date on what God is doing in the land and how you can be a part of it too. Well, it was a great show, but all good things must come to an end. So I want to thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here, guys, on First Century Foundations. Sounds like a shofar. Are you taping that? Yeah, it's wonderful. We're going to see miracles now and miracles then. Guys, we have a great shirt. Great shirt.
Today we get to visit with the ministry of Rita Sukkot. Today we get to today.